Hi friends, welcome to Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I'm Jenny and we're gardening here in Baltimore, Maryland, Zone 7. Today is actually August 31st, but I am recording my September 1st yard tour, my monthly yard tour. I'm doing it today because tomorrow we're expecting to have rain all day from Hurricane Ida. So come with me and let's take a look around the yard and garden at the end of the summer. All in all, it has been a really fun and productive gardening season here at Harmony Hills. We've done a lot of work in the yard this year. Our backyard renovation is a major project that we've undertaken. We've done a lot out front as well. I wanted to touch on some of the hits and misses that we've had this year in the garden, some things that have worked really well and some things that have not been so great. And along the line, we'll also take a peek at most of the yard and see how things are looking. I'm going to try to keep this video a little bit shorter this time. So if you want more information, go ahead and subscribe because we do a lot of gardening around here and you'll get to see the entire yard at one point or another in upcoming videos. One of the first successes that I want to talk about is right out here at the entry of the garden. These are the new no-dig flower beds that we created about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. And let's take a look at how they're doing. On both sides, all of the plants are doing well for the most part. The Millennium Allium are fully blooming now and they're looking great. All the shrubs are doing well. And the daisies, most of them are okay. This center one here doesn't look like it is surviving, but it might come back from its roots. I don't know. Actually, that is one that I didn't divide, so I'm not sure why it's struggling so. All of these daisies were clearance plants, and I divided this plant into two and I divided this plant into two, and they're coming right along. The one that I didn't divide, struggling. I do have a little bit of clover on the edges of the flower bed, but nothing too terrible, and after it rains tomorrow I'll come out and get those out. Right now it's just too dry. On this side, the dahlias have been suffering from spider mite damage all season long, but they're still flowering their heads off and they're doing pretty well. I like them. They are pollinator magnets. We've got lots of moths on them right now and a couple of bees. So those are pretty well, flowering pretty well, except for the foliage. Looks kind of messy. And then the daisies on this side, we've got 4 clumps here that used to be 2. Over there is another clump that I divided into 2, and one of the divisions is failing, but the other one's doing all right. I anticipate they'll come back next year just fine. On this side, the Millennium Allium are doing well, and next year they're going to be even better. Now let's go take a look at the front foundation. You may know that I'm doing a front foundation refresh project right now, and I have so far done an inventory of what we have, and I've made a planting plan. Also I trimmed up these lemon thread false cypress just the other day, and I posted about that today, I believe. So those are looking pretty good. There's a lot more work to be done coming up in the next week or 2. In here, all of these shrubs are going to either be trimmed or be moved or be taken out. A lot of the flowers and plants in this area are going to be moved mostly, or added to on this side, but things are coming along. These dahlias are the same as they were out by the front. These are from seed, and they are the Unwinds mix. And these are nice and cheery and always have lots of pollinators on them. Things over here are doing pretty well. I just put in these 2 new azaleas and I have them covered with fencing and deer netting. So that hopefully will keep the deer from eating them, which they don't do when the azaleas are larger, but when they're small and fresh, the deer do eat them. I've got several perennials in here that are tiny clumps that I'm hoping will really establish well next year. My fairy rose is growing and growing and has been blooming a little tufts of blooms all season. I think next year it'll be even better. Lots of bare holes in here, but I have a plan to fill them all. The Mexican petunias keep getting eaten by deer, so I don't get very many flowers on it. But the flowers that do come, I love them. I love that color of purple, and I love the shape. Just like a regular petunia, but Mexican petunia. And these two rose bushes are doing fine. And yeah, things along here are doing all right. That azalea that I moved, it used to be right here, and I moved it over there a few months ago. I'm keeping it watered, and it seems to be doing all right. So there's a lot of things to come for this flower bed. And then same thing up over here. There's a lot of things in here. Nothing much terribly blooming right now. The autumn joy is starting to turn color, and so it's pretty. It has taken some deer damage this year, and so it's not as full and lush as it normally is. Fairy rose again is doing pretty well. There's a new echinacea back there that is raspberry truffle, and I love it, and I'm hoping to find some more. This is a ruby star, and it hasn't bloomed yet because of deer damage, but I'm hoping next year to have a great show from it. Yeah, lots of greenery over here, not much happening. The powwow echinaceas that I put in a couple of weeks ago have a lot of nice blooms on them. They're pretty short though, and I'm hoping they are taller next year. Calamint, strong bloomers, definitely love those. And thank you to those of you who told me that these are not delphinium, these are monkshood. Ah, who knew? Not me. And so that's why they bloom in October. So they're just starting to put together their flower buds up here on the top. And I have staked them up, so hopefully they won't flop. And I'll have some beautiful purple spikes there in about a month, maybe a month and a half. But otherwise, there's really not much blooming. There's a lot of green. So I'm adding things like these echinacea, and I have more echinacea clumps being scattered throughout here in my planting plan. So hopefully next year, at this time of year, we'll have even more color and interest than we do right now. I do want to mention this beauty berry right here. It's beautiful. It currently has green berries on it, but in about a month these are going to be bright purple and they will be lovely. I have a really unusual thing that I did here. I had some echinacea down here, purple coneflowers, and these were just the echinacea purpurea, just the straight plain purple coneflower, and they had been blooming for a long time, but they were pretty much done. And I wanted to have the seed heads for the birds, but I didn't want to have the gangly plants hanging out down there, so I trimmed them all off. And then I trimmed off my petunias and stuck my purple coneflower stalks into the dirt where the petunias still are, but they're trimmed back. And so now the birds will be able to come and feast on these drying echinacea seed heads, but my flower bed looks neater and nicer. And so also, you know, as they dry and turn brown or black, as the case may be, the birds will eat them, but also, hey, you could use them as Halloween decorations. All right, let's check out how the side garden is doing. There is not a whole lot to report on in here. Everything is hanging in. I do have these two containers here that have baby gem boxwoods in them, and I also put in pink forget-me-nots, and I forgot that forget-me-nots are biennial and they wouldn't bloom this year. So I really need to take these forget-me-not plants out and plant them in the ground and let the baby gems do their thing without being crowded by the forget-me-nots. So that's a project to do in the next few, I don't know, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Everything else along here is doing all right. I'm trying my best to keep everything well watered. I have not yet figured out drip irrigation on this system, on this garden yet, and I need to do that. But otherwise, I just hand water. And things are doing well. The heucheras that I put in are doing fine. All the hostas, now that I have the slug damage kind of trimmed off and I've been baiting, seems like slugs and earwigs are not as much of a problem in August as they were in June and July. The planter box is doing well. Everything in there is blooming nicely. I did a very, very small amount of trimming on the Steed's hollies just so that they weren't so wild and crazy. So yeah, it's coming along. Things over here doing well. Not much to really report about or write home about. These black-eyed Susans that are here don't get enough sun. They did bloom, but not in a showy way. So I'm going to be taking them out of here and transplanting them down on the other side of the fence, out in the full sun down there, where they can live a happy life. Yeah, and this side is all doing well as well. Everything seems to be hanging in there. Not much blooming happening though. Lots of nice green and lots of different textures and colors and things. This Daphne I'm a little bit worried about. I keep watering it and it keeps looking very thin. So I'm hoping that it survives here, but this might be something that I might lose. I just, you know, I keep it watered, but I don't know. These endless summer hydrangeas, there's a couple more buds coming on them. 1 or 2 buds here or there. Otherwise, they're pretty much done. They're supposed to be blooming all summer long, but in my experience, they put out a big flush in the spring and then not much the rest of the time. Okay, this is a fragrant tea olive, Osmanthus fragrans, and it has put on several tufts of new growth in the last couple of weeks, so that's good. This is on the borderline zone 7 or 8. So some sources say it's a zone 7, some say it's a zone 8. We're going to have to see if it survives my zone 7 winter. Pieris japonica doing very, very well. Happy with that. And the Camellia japonica doing very well as well. That is a Jerry Hill variety, and I do see buds on that, so that's all good. And we'll come around to this other side in just a minute. Quick report in on this planter container that I did a video about. This particular sedum here is not doing as well as the rest. Ooh, look at that. It's all falling apart just when I touch it. So yeah, that one's not so good. But the other 3 are hanging in there. And of course, this is a lemon coral sedum. It's pretty indestructible, so maybe next year I'll just do this whole planter in lemon coral. I don't know. We'll see. I like the variety of the different kinds in there. This is a citronella plant, 2 of them, that I need to prune up and pot up into bigger plants, and I'm going to try to take them in as house plants this year. We'll see. Why is it that the machines always start working when I'm trying to do a recording? On the subject of hits and misses, I haven't really talked about these pepper plants down here very much at all. I'm not even sure I've mentioned them, but I bought a 4-pack of habanero pepper plants from the garden center way back in May. And I planted them along here, and I really didn't do much for them. I tried to keep them watered. I fertilized them a couple of times, but they have been producing tons and tons. All right, that's an overstatement. Many, many habanero peppers all season long. And let me give you a closer look. This is just one example. This particular stalk here has 3 peppers on it. And when you look under there, there's a lot more coming. We've got ripe ones, we've got almost ripe ones, we've got not ripe ones, and we've got 4 plants of them like this. So if you want any habanero peppers, I'm here to tell you it was easy crop to do. I didn't really pay much attention to it, and we've been getting lots and lots of produce. The only downside is I don't really eat hot peppers, so my husband's been eating them little bits at a time. We have way more than we need. Here we are in the backyard, the renovation that we did this year. 2 thumbs up. Yeah, there's been so much work happening back here, so many new plants. A lot of things have thrived, some things have struggled. So let's just take an overview look around and see what I would consider the hits and misses of the new garden back here. One of the big hits back here was this limelight hydrangea. Now we've had some rain that has knocked down the branches, the new young branches. They got a little floppy, but it was very, very full of beautiful flowers. They've all gone green now. I don't know if they're going to turn pink or if they're just going to go brown like those down there on the ground. I don't know. We're going to find out. So definitely a success there. The limelight, I'm happy with that. Dahlias. I did a video about how I trimmed back my dahlias, and I wasn't sure if I was hurting them or if I was helping them, but I want to show you the progress. First of all, back there, you can see that one down at the stem. There's lots of new shoots coming up, and one main stem is doing very well. To contrast that, this one doesn't seem to have done well. But over here, this one, which I did trim back a lot, has new stuff coming up on the stems and so forth. And there's even new buds on this one, even though it's got lots of spider mite damage. Here's one that is very similar to that one over there. I cut it back just like that, but look at this. It's flushed out a whole lot of new stems, and I'm guessing that is going to flower before the frost comes. That one's looking fine and has buds on it. This one back here that I also cut back to the ground does have a couple of little sprouts on it, so maybe that one will recover. This one has sent up this whole new shoot since I did that pruning on it, and this whole new shoot as well. And look, a bud. So far, that dahlia project has been, I would say, a success-ish. I'm having to live with about a month's worth of not great looking dahlias. On the other hand, they weren't looking great before either, so I think this is going to be just fine. Otherwise along here, things are coming along pretty well. Little boxwood in there, it's doing fine. Some, you know, just assortment of different plants and things. The Millennium Allium did really well. I'm happy with those. Salvia argentea, I like this one, and this one is trying to catch up. It had been covered over with dahlias until about a week and a half ago. Blue Point's doing fine. Three Nandinas in here, although you can pretty much only see 2 of them. There's a third one back in there. The marigolds have covered it. And the Loropetalum's doing fine. This is a Plain the Blues Salvia. It's not as great as some of the other ones that I have in the garden, but it's hanging in. Tomatoes are just about done, and I'll probably be taking them out soon, but I am able to harvest now and again another beautiful tomato. So this is a Sun Sugar one. They're orange at maturity, and these are my favorite. I did Sun Sugar and I did Sweet 100, and I love the Sun Sugars the best. So coming down the way. These are the phlox that I put in a couple of weeks ago, and they flowered beautifully. Then I trimmed them back, and now they're putting out a new flush of growth and some new buds. So we'll get a little bit more color out of those. This is another camellia. It has buds on it. This is another fragrant tea olive, and I'm hoping again that that is hardy to 7. We'll see, won't we? Just random things along here. Huge hosta flowers. Things doing pretty well. All the shrubs that we put in are on drip irrigation along this fence line, and they do get watered, and so they're happy here. This garden here, these are the Gara that I put in, I don't know, a month ago or so. These are the graceful white, and that is true. That is exactly what they are, graceful and white. And even this little teeny tiny one back there that I was worried about is putting up flowers and will live until next year, so that's good. Oh, let's talk about Zephyrine Drew and Rose here. She is brand new. I just planted her not too long ago. And look how many canes she's got. Let's see, 1, 2, standing up nice and tall. A third one that I've kind of leaned up on this arbor, and a fourth one that's going and leaning over that way. So I need to get this one kind of leaned over and trained onto that arbor so that next year Zephyrine Drew and Roses will climb up that arbor and do well. Let's go through here and take a look at the Can Rose, which also seems to be happy in her spot. She has lots of growth on her. I have gotten a couple of flowers. I'm not anticipating more flowers because, you know, the season is ending, but she seems to be happy, and the insects have not found her, knock on wood. I haven't had any insect damage to speak of there. A little bit, but not too much. Twist and Shout hydrangea, my very favorite. She has really performed for me this year. Coming to the end of the bloom season, the blooms are all pretty old at this point, most of them. Actually, look, there are 2 new buds there, and this flower is still in its prime, or maybe just a minute past its prime. But yeah, 2 buds there, and then there's one over there and one over there. So yeah, we're still gonna have some new flowers on here. I see a couple more even. So yeah. Play in the Blues salvia. There's 3 of those plants here. 2 of them flopped over, and one of them is using the fence for support and has really spread out on that fence, and it looks really good. This is Radar Love Clematis, and it has the prettiest little tiny yellow bells on it. Isn't that sweet? I do love that. I'm not sure it's the best site for it, but I'm happy with those flowers. And I do love this Rockin' Play in the Blues salvia. There are some Sedum Autumn Joy hidden underneath this hydrangea, but you can hardly see them because the hydrangea's grown so much this year. This is the back side of this garden behind the seating area. Status did well this year, an annual that I grew from seed. This is another Gara, Beliza Dark Pink, and it's pretty shrubby looking. It hasn't really flowered all that much, so I'm not sure what to expect from that. These are some penstemon that have flowered already. My plan for these gladiolas and the ones over there and a couple other spots also is to dig them all up, cut the greens off, and replant them deeper to see if I can keep them from flopping over next year. We'll see. You know, this whole garden project this year kind of started as a spur-of-the-moment decision back in February, and all of this that you see here wasn't here when we started the season this year. So I'm really pleased with this garden space, and I know that there are some lessons to be learned out of here and things to change for next year. But as far as first year gardens that started from scratch, I couldn't be any more pleased. More of the Gara here. Here's a 9-bark. It's still small but mighty. Furman's Red Autumn Sages. There's 2 of those. There's a Proudberry Coralberry here. I don't really see any blooms on it this year, but maybe next year. Hostas. There's the new Ruby Slippers Oakleaf Hydrangea. 3 red twig dogwoods whose twigs are starting to turn red. Yay! We have 3 denim and lace Russian sages along here. Another of the Furman's Red Autumn Sage. This is a, what is it? Globe thistle that never put out any blooms this year. So don't know what to expect from that. And same thing with these 3 rose campions. Nothing off of those other than foliage this year. So who knows what'll happen there. This is a patch of Monarda that has flopped and done no blooming. Darn. Sedum Autumn Joy. These are Daisy, Real Charmer Daisy, and I think they're pretty much done. I do see 1 new bud here. Are there any others? No, there's tons of mosquitoes though. Yikes. Yeah, 1 new bud coming still and 1 left. But they were a beautiful, beautiful addition to the garden. I'm really happy with those. These glads need to be cared for. And so let's go, oh, hey, while we're here, Nellie Moser. Second flush of blooms. She bloomed beautifully in the spring and now again in the fall. Very happy with that. And next year it'll be even better. I'm not going to do any pruning on this. We'll let all of these stems stay here, and then next year she'll bloom on both old and new wood. At least I think. The view of the garden from here is quite lush and overwhelming and not at all what I expected, but actually everything that I expected. Does that make any sense at all? I mean, most of these plants I've never grown before, and so I didn't really know what they were going to do. And will I repeat exactly this planting next year? Probably not, just because I like variety. But do I recommend that you use these plants? Sure, why not? They worked well for me. We've got the Nepeta Walker's Low here. This is another boxwood. By the way, there are Nepeta and boxwood over here as well. The Kufia annuals, the Penstemon. I forget the name. The Alternanthera I've never grown before, but what a pop of chartreuse that is. I really thought they were going to get tall, but no, they didn't. They got wide, which is fine. And this Purple Heart, or Purple Queen, depending on how you call it. Boy, the color contrast, right? I mean, wow, that's crazy. This is columnar basil, Greek columnar basil, and wow, they grew amazingly. I have not used this for cooking at all. I'm just using it for greenery in the garden and kind of hiding the back side of this garden, and it worked really well for that. I mean, you could make a tiny little hedge out of that, couldn't you? Summer Crush Hydrangea. She's not going to get much bigger than that, really, in her full maturity. So I'm happy with her. She's got 1 bloom on her right now back in there and 1 more coming. So I'm hoping that her spring blooms are a little bit more full than that. This Gina Phlox I transplanted mid-season into this location, so she really struggled for being lanky, but I'm hoping that next year she'll just be nice and strong and tall and beautiful right here. It's about time to deadhead her though, isn't it? Golden Jubilee Hyssops along here I've deadheaded, and they're starting to put out a couple of fresh blooms. It's about the end of the season for it though. Hey, look at all the foxgloves we're going to have next year. All of these foxgloves are going to send up beautiful spikes of flowers in the spring. And won't that look gorgeous against these arborvitae? Oh my goodness, imagine the foxgloves there. It's going to be great. Here's more calumet. Love it. I have some of this out front too, and I am definitely going to be putting more of this in. I love it. And so do the pollinators. Black truffle lobelia, cardinal flower. Yeah, I like the color. I don't like its habit. So we'll see how that one goes. This is an Agastache that's pretty small and petite. I'm hoping that it blooms better for me next year. It's got a lot of spider mites right now, so we'll see. Hosta, more big, huge blossoms on the hosta. Flowering quince. Can't wait to see what that one and that one does next spring, hoping they're gorgeous. I put in the basil and the kale in here just to attract bugs, and look at the kale. The bugs certainly found it, didn't it? Lavender's doing well. I put this vinca in just on a lark and it's doing well. This is another lemon thread cypress. Imagine how big that's going to be. It'll be the same as the ones out front. Crazy. Pink chiffon, Rose of Sharon, gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous blossoms. Double blossoms. And look how many buds are still to come on this plant. All of these tips have lots of new blossoms on them. So I'm very happy with that plant. And then moving up this way, here is a climbing hydrangea that I'm hoping will climb up onto and cover this fence. We'll see. I know they're slow to grow. Azaleas and hostas, azaleas and hostas. There's a Fothergilla plant there, another azalea. This is terribly dry shade area right here. And so I lost 2 ladies' mantles because I just can't keep them wet enough along here. All right, and we're coming back up toward the top. This is the Incredible hydrangea that was out front, and then I moved it back here because the deer ate it. But look how well it's recovering. Putting on new blossoms, not blossoms, but at least new leaves at the end of every tip that got eaten. So it wants to live, so yay. And then I moved the bobo from that spot into this container, and it's doing very well. It likes this container a lot. So yeah, these are English daisies that I did from seed. I don't know if I'm going to keep them or not. They will stay for now. All right, here are some phlox that I got on clearance recently, and they're hanging in there, and I think they'll be great next year. These are 3 sanguisorbas, pink bottle brushes. I like those. These are some Editha rose lilies that are done blooming. Here's my standard azalea that it grew out of the ground like this, and so I just stuck it in a pot and said, okay, you can be a standard. This is a beautiful summer fashion rose. It had beautiful, beautiful blooms on it this year. Nothing right now, but that was definitely a hit. And now we're back up to the top. So that's a rough overview of most of the yard. There are some things I didn't show you, but there's nothing to see there. So I hope that you enjoyed the look around the garden today. You know, it's the end of summer and most things have worked out. I think there are some like down at the bottom where all that purple heart is and that alternanthera, I'll probably do different annuals down there next year. I don't know exactly. And then there are some of the perennials that I might move around. I might not have dahlias in the same spots next year. I'm not sure. But that's a great thing about gardening, is that you get to live through one season, take the positives, take the negatives, and make a new plan for next year. So I hope you enjoyed the look around, and I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll subscribe and keep following what's happening in the gardening world here at Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I'd love to have you as part of our community. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you in another video really soon. Have a good day, friends. Bye-bye.